Hello everyone, and welcome to a new spot called the Haunted Hour Club, where you can relax by listening to ghost stories or have a scary night with the lights off. This channel was made for the purpose of expanding those stories we listen to in Spanish to English or vice versa. If you stay till the end and like the story, give us a like and subscribe. And without further ado, let's begin. The following story happened in my village, a hidden place between the hills. Its population is made up of farmers and housewives, a village almost forgotten. At the start of the 90s, in a town where the houses with electricity aren't common and the people are untrusting, there are whispers of a legend about a very beautiful young woman who appears late at night to whoever is dumb enough to be walking the dark streets. David, a childhood friend, and I were walking home after having been drinking a couple of cold ones during the May festivities that the town organized every year. It was right around 1:30 a.m., and in those days the heat was so unbearable it felt like you were in hell. David kept complaining it was still too early and that we should have stayed a little bit longer since the festivities only happened once a year. That's the only time other people from other regions came to our town, making it a little bit more prosperous and alive. On the way to our homes, David started to sing and whistle since the mood was through the roof due to having a few beers. The night was calm, the leaves from the trees weren't moving as if there wasn't any wind. I lit up a cigarette, giving the night the only light in that lonely road. David started telling me a story he overheard from the ranchers at the festival, since gossiping was his weakness. They were talking quietly among themselves about a beautiful young woman dressed in all white that would appear walking on trails and sometimes on the side of roads. There have been a handful of people who have seen her from far away, but lately there have been more and more sightings of her. Some have heard chilling screams around the area, and some have even felt a dark presence nearby. But don't listen to me, since this isn't exactly the best time to be telling you this kind of stories, especially given the darkness of the night, David said. After we had been walking more than half an hour, we finally made it to David's house, but I still had a ways to go. I had to walk by an elementary school that just a few meters down had a cemetery connected to it. A bit ironic if you ask me. On one side, it's the beginning of life, and on the other is the end of the road, literally. As I was walking by it, I paid my respects. I kept walking, but the more time passed, the heavier the night became when all of a sudden I heard a cry in the distance, and I told myself, "Damn you, David, now you're making me hear stuff." As I walked, I kept tripping on some rocks. Even though the moonlight was there, it wasn't enough. When all of a sudden I heard the same scream again. At that moment I knew it wasn't a coincidence. I started walking faster, feeling myself about to cry. I didn't know if I should go back to David's house or keep going. In the distance I could see a shadow of a person walking. I hurried to try and catch up. I walked faster and still couldn't cut the distance. Call me crazy, but I was looking for a little bit of comfort and took my chances. As I got closer, that shadow turned out to be a woman walking. I froze in my tracks when all of a sudden, in a soft voice, she said, "Don't worry. I don't bite. You can walk with me. This isn't the time or place to be walking alone," she said. I didn't know what to ask. We were quiet for a bit. Her hair was dark, long and straight. That's about all I saw. Since it was dark, I couldn't quite take a good look at her face. Her skin was a bit pale, but I was too nervous that I didn't see anything wrong with, that I just wanted some company. She said that her house was down the trail as we got to the crossroad. "Be careful walking alone at night. You don't know who you're going to find on these roads," with a sinister smile and a horrible voice that I never thought I would hear. I got chills down my spine. My heart started beating faster and faster to the point I felt it would explode out of my chest. Frozen in my tracks, I couldn't react. I started running. I ran as fast as my legs would let me. I could hear her laughter in the distance, enjoying watching me run in fear. I left the main road and started running downhill into the trees, thinking she wouldn't see me and I could get away. Boy, was I wrong. I hid myself as much as I could. All of a sudden, I started hearing children laughing. Not lying when I tell you, tears of desperation started falling down my cheeks. Suddenly, the children laughing turned into a more diabolical one, and I stopped breathing when I realized it came from somewhere from behind me. And in between laughter, she said, "You're not getting away from me." I could hear branches snapping closer and closer. From my hiding place, I saw her. I couldn't believe she was the same person I saw on the road. She had long arms with long curved nails, her face completely deformed, but with an ear-to-ear smile and sharp pointy teeth. That image still gives me nightmares to this day. I stepped out from my hiding place and continued running. I could feel her getting closer to me, hunting me down. No matter how fast I ran or how much I looked, I couldn't find the main road again. I had lost track of time and seemed to be lost. My shirt was torn and I didn't know if it was caused by the branches or by her claws. I stopped at a big tree to catch my breath. I hid myself in its roots, covering my mouth and taking slow breaths to make the least sound possible. I could hear her footsteps getting closer and closer. She shouted, "I can smell your fear," as she sniffed repeatedly, following my scent. In that moment, she let out a loud scream that made my skin crawl. I started praying under my breath while clenching a rosary my mom had given me. She got angry and began to curse at me. In that moment, I saw a familiar path that wasn't there before. It was the path that led to my house. In the distance, I saw a few houses. I looked around, and there she was behind me. I could run or stay here and get taken by that demon. I told myself, it's now or never. I took a deep breath and gathered the courage and took off as fast as I could, yelling and screaming. I didn't care that I was crying and my voice was cracking, or that I would wake up my neighbors. That was the plan, making as much noise as I could, so they would have to come out of the house. I briefly looked behind me to see if she was still following me, and the last thing I saw was that thing jump in the air and disappearing into the trees. When I turned back around, I saw people coming out of their homes to see what was happening. They all started asking questions, but all I could say was, "The woman in white." Everyone left me alone after that, as if they knew what or who I was referring to. When I got home, my mom was waiting for me outside. She had heard the desperate screams and had come outside to see what all the commotion was about. When she saw me pale and unable to get any words out, she called out for my father so he could help her bring me inside. After a few minutes, I was able to tell them what had happened. I could see on their faces that they didn't believe a word I said. Since they could smell the alcohol on my breath, they thought I was drunk. That's how that night ended, in a simple drunken story. But I know what happened. That was an experience that I don't want it to ever repeat itself. Since then, I try not to go out late at night. That's the end of this story. Thanks for staying until the end. Let me know what I can improve and what kind of stories y'all would like to hear next. And if you have your own stories that y'all would want me to read, y'all can send them to the email below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Thank you.